This is part two in our chat with Jeremy Kareken and David Murrell and Halena Kays. And we're talking about lifespan of a fact. Halena, take it.
Yeah. Well, here's a question that's a cheat for me since I'm heading into directing it. What do you think are the pitfalls in rehearsal that actors run into as you watched it? What are pitfalls that in process people might run into, and or what are ways that people successfully navigate this test?
An interesting question.
That is an interesting question. We had such a short rehearsal process. Once we got in the rehearsal room, it was three and a half weeks rehearsal.
Yeah.
So we didn't have time for pitfalls. Unfortunately, we've seen a couple other productions at regional theaters, and I've seen possible pitfalls. David, do you want to handle this as well?
Well,
I have a couple
I feel
ideas.
like you might actually know this better. What I would suggest to both of us is we try to remember simply notes we've given directors. You know, one really big one, and it almost sounds cliched, but it's really very true in this play, is that it has to not drag. It has to keep moving forward very fast at all, really throughout. Because it rather easily can drag. Like, we don't like the play when it is slow. It just doesn't. It doesn't work. I don't think it's a good play when it's slow.
Norman Twain said very early on, he goes, "This has to be like a Jesus lizard, that it has to keep running fast enough to stay afloat."
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. One thing that I think is important. One thing that I think is important to remember is this: we wrote it very much with an older brother, younger brother, mother, subtext.
You mean the three characters?
The three characters. That older brother, younger brother. The teasing, the pugnacity, the combativeness, I think is important for the play, and no one should ever seem resigned. It should seem to be a wrestling match with with Emily as the referee or the judge. It's got to be, and she's got to get in. She's got to mix it up too. It's got to be a fight.
Yeah, Jeremy, I feel like, haven't there been some things you thought about how Emily's been done, without naming names, of course, but that you thought, oh, I wish they had realized this about it or something? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but because we've seen production, we've not always seen the same productions. So Jeremy has seen ones I have not. I've seen ones he has not.
Sometimes I feel I have seen Emily's who play the flash of her editor too much. They'll play her a little more Devil Wears Prada than she should be, because the more she gets sucked into this, the more she's just got to be personally interested in her. I mean, she values this.
Yeah.
She can't ever be a caricature. It's a brief play. So a lot of these characters are, but all three of these characters are, I don't want to say they're not Cliff's Notes, but they're heightened, and it's much shorter than, so sometimes people can fall into character and they have to do the work underneath the character for it to work.
And I am sympathetic to actresses who approach the role, because all of us, we're all so immersed in the TV shows and the movies we've seen throughout our lives. I think it's hard not to, even unconsciously, rely a little on all these flashy, powerful, aggressive female high-end magazine editors.
That makes me really excited about getting into a rehearsal room, because not only have you made everyone's stakes very high and this ticking clock, but I feel great empathy for all three of them. They have a different point of view, and they're all right as far as the play is concerned, I think.
That's a tremendous compliment. And it's something that we absolutely felt in the theater, that, from night to night, we always felt it was 55-45 one way or the other per night. We never felt like it was it never felt, it always felt like an even fight. And that made us feel better than anything.
Yeah.
Even better than the laughs, which of course we love as comedy guys. So yeah.
Now I haven't done all my research yet, so I'll probably find this somewhere. But the house in Vegas that they this is not a spoiler for anyone. Is that your invention? All the specificity around that, or is that come from what?
No, it's all us.
That's us.
He's in Iowa, really, right? So this is an invention that you guys made.
Which was an invention? I didn't hear that.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, the Vegas house, or the fact that he lives there in the Vegas house, that's invention. Is that...
He did live in Vegas at the time. That's absolutely true. Or actually, by the time he'd written the book, he was in Iowa, maybe, or
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But no, the play in the early on was not working in those first 6 months, and we had to make. And there's something so invasive about the way Jim is, and we had to make. There
Like
had
physical.
to be physicalize the invasiveness, and that's why we had to move. We had to put it in Vegas. We tried it in New York. We tried it all sorts of places.
Right, because Jim and John never actually met in person. They were never even in the same state during their whole years-long argument via email. And it sounds so trivial and obvious in retrospect, but as Jeremy said, we floundered for months on this, and probably the single hugest breakthrough we had was to have it switch over to John's house in Vegas. That is the only thing that allowed it to go forward finally.
And then there's so many things in the house that can raise the stakes for John. You know, the walker. You know, the mother who's passed away, and she's not dead. She's fine. So
his mother is
Mrs. Degata.
You killed his
her.
mother.
I know.
We met her. We met her. We met her and said that, and we said, "We're sorry for killing you." And she was such a cheerful woman, and she said, "Oh, I'm just glad I could be of use."
That's right. I'm glad I could be of use.
Oh, that's amazing. What are you excited about this show being done in 2020? You started it so long ago. So many different things have happened with truth, and now we have this added level of the idea of coming together as a community to wrestle with ideas, as opposed to wrestling with them in our own strange home offices. Do you have any thoughts about that, or bringing it to Chicago specifically?
I can't wait to bring it home in that way. I mean, obviously, we wrote this before the phenomenon of Trump, before people started talking about fake news, but it was something that we'd been thinking about a lot, in that everybody had, everybody, as the internet got older, facts got more and more democratized. Everyone had access to their own set of facts in inverted commas. And that concerned us to some degree, because facts, objectivity became more and more devalued, and yet more important, but I don't even know what objectivity is anymore. So it's harder and harder and we notice that more and more. And, with regard, just the way people can hijack a narrative, the way, our various politicians do it, and Trump didn't invent it. People have been doing it for a very, very long time. History has been hijacked again and again, and sometimes for good reasons, and sometimes for evil reasons, and sometimes for good reasons it ends up becoming evil, and vice versa. So I think it's important to think about now, but I also think it's important to think about always.
Yeah.
And with the result of this, and because of this virus, it's all the more important that people get the facts and realize it as truth, but also question the narrative that's out there. The official facts coming out of China were wrong. Right. They were for whatever reason. But if you question the official facts about quarantining, you're putting a lot of people in danger. So facts and truth still, this fight is going to always be happening.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's very, very difficult to talk about this aspect of it, because it is so airy and intellectual. And also, I feel just in some ways, and I'm not quietist or a know-nothing, but I mean, in some ways, I feel it's really kind of unknowable, that all you can do is talk about it. You're not really going to get anywhere, though. And again, I don't mean that in a give up way. Anyway, to answer, my answering of your last question is, first of all, like Jeremy, I'm absolutely delighted and emotionally moved to be bringing it to the Chicago area. We love it there. We love the city. We loved our time in college. It was, easily 5 of the best years of my life. So it's so nice to be having something that worked, that we did go and be able to be put up there. It's great. And as for the facts business, Jeremy, you probably essentially said this, but I remember at least you said it in part. But something about today, contemporaneous times, is this business of the internet and the business of facts. And in a way, it's almost a problem how many facts are available now. It's kind of like when you flood the market with something, you deflate its value. So it's kind of like if there's a disagreement about the minimum wage, I think it should be raised to $15 an hour. Jeremy, this is not true. Jeremy, whatever. It doesn't matter who thinks what. Jeremy thinks the market should be allowed to decide there should be no minimum wage. What I can do is send him an email saying, I think you'll be convinced if you read these 15 links I'm sending you, and you'll be like, it's funny because I think you'll be convinced if you read these 15 links I'm sending you. And so, great. I read 15 libertarian arguments. I'm probably not persuaded by them, and ditto on his end. But lots of facts were exchanged.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is the best kind of full circle of this, is what this play first and now the book, now that I'm like drowning in De Agata, writing and worldview, is, does it take the artist to contextualize for us? Does it take the poets to show us meaning in these facts? And that's the argument, that I just haven't thought about for the last 2 years, because I've been so mired in the Trumpian fact world that I've been obsessing about that and wondering what theater can do in that.
But it's interesting when you hear you say that too, that the artist could also lead us down the primrose path, to destruction, because, the narrative fallacy is literally a fallacy. A narrative bias is that, beautiful words are true, and, and true words are, that's maybe not. People are voting for things that are, just because it is charismatic on the page or on stage doesn't make it true either. Yeah. So, and to bring it, even bring it back to the University of Chicago a little bit, their motto is, Crescat Scientia Vito Excolator, let human knowledge be enriched, and by letting knowledge grow let human life be enriched by knowledge growing from more to more. They never say getting all knowledge, because you can't do it. It's not possible. So.
First of all, I'm very impressed that you remembered the Latin motto of the University of Chicago. I could have spent 5 years there and not have been able to remember that. So,
well, that the little bit of Latin is for Boris Johnson, who's recovering at this moment. So he loves his Latin.
Yeah, and as a recovering Catholic, I can tell you, I only have the Mass memorized. That's about Listen, this has been fascinating, and. The conversation you had about the need for the artist, Halena, is one of the big conversations that we're all going to be having when we come out of this coronavirus situation. Will people want to have these conversations? Will people thirst for the kind of dialectic that your play provides? And will people be brave enough to come back to the theater and sit in a collective room together? Those are big questions that we all have. I choose to believe, and I'm sure you guys do too, that the theater is, going back to the Greeks, a place where we can congregate, share ideas, conflict with congenially with those ideas, and I think is an important part of our culture and what moves us forward.
If Shakespeare can come back from the plague, so can we.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Hey, I want to thank you all for this. This has been great. And I think we should do it some more, but we're going to do it offline, I hope. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, David. Thank you, Helena. Everybody.
Thanks, BJ, Helena. Thanks,
September 24th is the first preview, and we open October 2nd. Theater lives, Northlight lives.
Yes.
See you back in Skokie soon.